Hello and welcome. I am Charissa with a Cook with a Shoe, a personal finance blog where I share my story of becoming debt-free while paying cash for my husband's education. And I am here to serve you by teaching you the value of living life on a shoestring budget by choice so that you can gain control of your money and reach your financial goals. I'm super excited to have you join me on a live Q&A session where you can ask me anything. If you are on the Google event page, you can click the rubrics cube or it might look like a grid, that icon on the top of the video to ask a question or to see the showcase with all the helpful links I will be sharing. If you're on YouTube, click the Be Part of the Conversation banner to ask your question. Now this is a redo because apparently I was just having a day for technical difficulties. And would you believe I had to restart my computer just as the first session started. And then I filmed everything, answered my questions, and what do you know, I accidentally deleted the YouTube video. So this is a redo just so that you have the information. Now, there are some people who had already submitted questions on Facebook, and I'm picked on one of those questions to start with. And so this question comes from Jennifer, and she's saying, "How do you stay motivated to stick with your budget when your budget's always changing?" Well, Jennifer, that's a very good question. I'd say the biggest thing to stay motivated is you need to know why you're doing your budget. What is the reason that you need to have control of your money? For example, if you have a lot of debt payments that you're paying on, maybe you could start asking yourself, what would I do if I didn't have any payments? What would I do with all that extra money? And once you figure out your why, where you want to go in your financial life, and what kind of things you want to reach, where you want to give or travel and whatnot, and you have that as your goal, then that helps you stay motivated with sticking with the budget, and not feeling like you're a failure. Now, you brought up something that the budget's always changing. And yes, for a while at first, when you first start doing a budget, it does change a lot because you realize, oh, I need to pay for car insurance that I only pay once every 6 months for, and you have to scramble. And then once you figure that out, you can add those expenses, those annual expenses, into your monthly budget. So, for example, with the car insurance, I pay mine twice a year. And so every month I have 1/6 of the biannual payment going into savings. And then when it comes time that the car insurance is due, then I will just transfer it from savings into checking. And so once you start budgeting after a couple months, I'd say give it about 3 months to be really good with budgeting. Then you can see where you're overspending. You can see surprise expenses, and you can also start forecasting what kind of expenses are coming up. Say, for example, maybe you have a month that has just a lot more birthdays than normal. And so for that month, when you're readjusting the budget just slightly, just those, you can say, well, I need a little bit extra money for all these birthdays. But for the most part, your budget should be pretty close to being the same after the first few months, once you've gotten it down to a pretty regular thing. And thank you very much for your question. Let's see. And again, let me just say, if you're on the Google Events page, click on the rubrics cube icon and ask your questions and see the links that I'm sharing. If you're on the YouTube, click on the join the conversation now to ask your question. So my next question is, let's let's go with Valerie. How can people help guide family and friends who are not wise with their money? For example, they can't afford essential things, but they have the newest gadgets and cable TV to make better spending choices and to save. How can we guide them for that? And then the follow up for that. Uh, well, I'll answer that in just a second. Um, that's really hard because money is such a personal thing, and it comes down to your personal behavior and your personal choices that you make. And so when you see somebody who's not making very wise choices, they're buying luxury items when they can't afford the essential. It's a hard thing to do. I would say the best way is you live your life on a budget, on purpose. You pay for your essentials first, and if you need to give up your luxuries and so you can afford your essentials, then you do that, and you kind of model by behavior. And then be open to when they talk about money or they bring about money up, they're so stressed out, or and say, you know what, hey, sticking to a budget, it sounds like a lot of work, it sounds like horribly awful, boring, and no fun. But you know what I've found is budgeting actually really helps me to stay on track with my finances, to have enough money for everything I need to spend. I need to buy the essentials, and then to have money left over to do some of the luxury items. And that's how it's helped me. And plus, it's helped me reach some of my financial goals as well. And to be available when they do ask questions. But until they get to the point of being really fed up with their lack of money every month and the stress that they have with all the bills and their priorities out of order, then it's going to be hard to really help them until they're ready to make that choice and ready to change. Once they're ready to change, then you can be available and help them set up a budget, or you can say, well, look at these expenses, you need to cover these first, or whatever. So let's finish that question. And then her second part of the question was, how can we help and encourage them without enabling their poor spending habits? Again, model with your financial life. And then I would say you could, if you're planning on doing things, this is kind of what I do sometimes with people I know that are not doing well financially. So maybe if we want to get together, instead of going out where the temptation is to spend a lot of money, maybe I'll have a game night over at my house and invite them over. So at least I'm not contributing to their need to spend money when they don't have it. And we can do things, have fun and still be super cheap too, by doing it at home. So that would be, and again, if they bring up questions, or concerns, or ask you how you're able to handle that or pay for that vacation, or you're not stressed out about money, then that's an opportunity to share with them what you've done and how it's worked for you. That's what I found to be the best approach. And I do want to remind you, if you are on the Google Events page, click the Rubrics Cube, ask your question, see the showcase of all the websites I'm sharing. If you're on the YouTube page, I would love for you to click the Be Part of the Conversation Now and ask your question. I'm still going with some of my Facebook questions. Let's go with Naomi. And how did you start blogging? Is it worth all the work? Well, I started blogging when I was moved away from home to go to school when I was in college, a long time ago. And I did that as a means to stay in touch with everyone back home. So that was a real personal blog, which I kept up during my college years. And then I started another personal blog with just sharing some stories and pictures and fun stuff. And I had like 10 people reading it. And I think they were all family or a couple good friends. So then, after I became debt free, almost 6 years ago now, it's gone by fast. I really just kind of, I wanted to make a difference, and I wanted to have a platform because everybody was asking me how I was so good with money, how I paid off my debt, asking them to help set up a budget, or to just, all of a sudden I became the financial question fielder. And that kind of really stirred in me a desire to help more people with becoming debt free and not having that burden of debt. And so I started thinking about blogging, and around the same time, I've always loved blogging, as I said before, but I started realizing that you can have a good reach, influence with people, and through a blog, and then you can also make some pretty good money. And so I wanted to do that as a side business and grow this blog so I can bring in some income to keep serving you, and then also to reach some of my own financial goals. Is it worth the work? Well, it is a lot of work, a lot more than I thought, and I'm still learning. There's still a lot I have to do and a lot I have to get better at. But I've met people from all over the world, which have become my friends, which is pretty cool. And I have been able to reach a lot more people than I would in my day-to-day life. And I have earned a little bit of money from a couple affiliates, including Amazon. So that was kind of fun. So yeah, for me, I'd say it's worth the work. I'd like to continue with this. Thank you very much for your question. Now, if there's I still have a few more questions from my Facebook. It doesn't look like I'm getting any new questions coming in. So let me go with Deborah. How can someone start saving with a low income, and how do you prioritize the expenses? I would say the biggest thing you need to do is you need to set a budget. Because the budget is just a way to guide your finances. And if you're on a low income and you don't have much money, then to tell every dollar where it needs to go is essential, so that you can make sure you have the ability to afford what you do need. So I would make a budget, and first I would start by writing all your income down, and on the top of the page, and then I would write down all of your expenses, all your essential expenses down. And once you have that paid for, you need to first look at your food, and then your housing, your lights and water, and your house payment, and also your any essential bills that you have. So once you have all that, then I would take the rest of the money that you do have coming in, and you start divvying it out with the non-essentials, and and car expenses, or vehicle travel expenses to get back and forth, and work is also a priority. I if you don't have money, then if you don't have money to eat, but you're paying a credit card payment, I'd rather see you eat and deal with a credit card later when you have money. People have different ideas, but you can't pay it off if you're starving. So that's kind of where I go. So once you have the essentials paid for, then you see if there's any extra money. Budgeting also helps you say, oh, maybe I'm eating out a lot, or maybe I'm buying a lot at the store that I don't need. And so it allows you to cut back on areas that you might be overspending. So that would help you get a little income. Now, how do you save money when you don't have much? I believe that was all your question. Let me just double check. And my list has gone. And so if you can squeeze a little bit of extra money out of your budget after the essentials, I would put a little bit aside, even if it's just $5 a week, and so that you can build up a little bit of an emergency fund, a buffer, to prevent any emergencies. So if you have something comes up, you have a little bit of money to help with that expense, so you don't have to borrow more money. Or another idea you could do is you could see about saving your extra income. For example, if you birthday money, Christmas money, you could save any gift money that you get and save that. Let's see. Or when you cut everything you can and you're working on a tight budget, then sometimes then the next option would be, how can you bring in some more income? There's tons of side jobs that you can do. You can do things from home, find a need where you have a service to fill. You can get a part-time job, which I just got a part-time job a couple months ago, and I've been blown away at how much I've been able to save for my husband's school with having the second job, and it's just added up incredibly. So if you're in that position, then I would look into increasing your income as well. All right, let me see here. Before I continue, I just wanted to thank you all for being part of this conversation. Thank you for the questions that have been submitted. I don't see any new ones coming in, but feel free to join the conversation by clicking on the banner on YouTube or clicking on the rubrics cube on the events page in Google. Now, Jennifer has another question. What is one monthly expense that people could eliminate or reduce that often gets overlooked? I would say some of the ones you already have. Let me explain. In the last 6 months or so, I've negotiated my cell phone bill to be cheaper and save money there. And I've also negotiated my car insurance bill to be cheaper. I can only handle one bill and negotiating at a time because of the phone calls and just the back and forth, and being as busy as I am, I can only handle one at a time. But so those are good ways to go. See if you can negotiate some of the fixed expenses that you're paying, and see if you could reduce them down. I would say another monthly expense that people often overlook is the small spending, where you go and you're like, oh, I'm just going to buy a drink at the convenience store. And then you go and you buy just a few dollars worth of things at the grocery store. And then you buy a coffee, let's say. So all these little tiny expenses that you don't even think about, they add up a lot. And when you actually start tracking your money and tracking how much you're spending on those types of things, you can certainly, what I like to do is, instead of cutting it out completely, let me put a caveat here, unless you're at a position where every dollar needs to go to paying off debt very quickly, or building a little mini emergency fund, or something like that, or you just don't have any money. If you have some extra money and you want to spend some money on drink purchases, then set a amount. So for the month, I'm only going to spend $30. And I can spend the $30 all in the first week, or I can space it out so that I have some money in week 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then, but once you've reached that limit, then you shouldn't spend anymore. So that would be a way you can reduce some expenses as well. Naomi has another question about what got you so passionate about debt-free and budgeting. Well, I grew up with a family who did not like debt and who paid off their house early. That was one of some of my foundational memories. And they were so excited to have the house paid for and not to have any debt. And that really stuck with me. So I always really, I did not like the idea of getting debt. Now, I still took on debt. I took on some credit card debt when I was in school, a little bit. And then I took on a car loan. And then I got married and inherited some more credit cards and some more student loans. And it was stressful to having all these payments, and I wasn't making much, and money was tight. And so once I got married, then I started working to pay off our debt, and ended up paying that off a little bit shy of 2 years into our marriage. And then the freedom that I felt and the amount of stress that had decreased in my life due to not having any payments really gave me a passion for being debt-free and seeing other people have the same sense of freedom and peace that I have had. Now, and plus, at that time, I had a lot of friends and family start asking me about money and budgeting and paying off debt and all this stuff. And so I found myself wanting to help people too. Now, how did I become passionate about budgeting? Well, that wasn't until after I became debt-free, probably a couple of years afterwards. I had always hated a budget, and even to the point of avoiding it for a couple months until I had this huge work to deal with, or kind of getting a little mini panic attack when I was working on it because nothing seemed to work out right or balance right. And I always felt like the budget was just kind of yelling at me saying, you're doing a horrible job with money, and this is how you're failing and where you're failing. So I hated the budget. But then after we became debt-free, I started realizing my why for budgeting. Like I was telling Jennifer, I wanted to see my husband graduate with school debt-free. And I also want to buy a house someday. I'd love to pay for it in cash, or if not, put down a huge down payment on it. And I also want to be generous. And so I realized that the budget wasn't just there to yell at me to say that I'm a failure with money, but it's actually a tool, really powerful tool that helps me stay on track with my spending and to be able to save and to just have a plan for my money. In having a plan for my money, I have been able to achieve a lot of my financial goals. So that's kind of where the passion for budgeting came about. It's been a long process, but I'd say it's been worth it. And it's not my absolute favorite thing to do, the actual number crunching and data entry and everything, but I don't dread it anymore. I don't hate it. And so I know the benefit of following a budget. And so I do follow a budget every month. Now, that is all my questions. I don't see any more coming in, but I wanted to thank you all for coming on and watching my question and answers. I will be doing another question and answer session probably sometime in December, and I hope to see you then. But speaking of December, I have a couple things that might be helpful for you. Christmas can be expensive, and it's hard to I've overspent the last couple of years, just with all the pressure and everything being expensive. And then you go into January and February and March, and your new budget for the new year is derailed, and it takes a couple months to recover from it. And you know what? I'm kind of tired of that. So this year, I have um, I have a post that I wrote with several contributions from different bloggers about 18 wonderful ways to have a frugal, heartfelt Christmas. And that showcases different ideas you can do for less than $15 each, which is awesome if you're trying to cut back on your holiday spending like I am. Another great resource that I have come across is the I'm just trying to find my link here. Um, it is the book that I wrote this review on that I'm now sharing with you. It's called Christmas with Kids, and it's just a fantastic resource to which focuses more on making memories and doing things for fun with your kids, or even if you don't have kids, with your family, and without spending a lot of money. And so I recommend both of those resources. But then also, to help me and to help you guys stay on track, I have created a free printable Christmas budget tracker, which I'm sharing with you now. And this is where you can track how much money you're going to spend all together on your holiday spending. You write down who you're spending on and how much you're going to spend per person. And all that has to balance. And then you take it with you and kind of jot it down when you're in the store. And it's a free tracker that hopefully will help you stay on track with your money and with your holiday spending. I know when I've done stuff before and tracked my spending a couple of years ago, it really helped me stay on track. So I'm doing it again too, but I wanted to share that Christmas budget tracker for you. And I would love for you, if you want to, I would love for you to have that Christmas budget tracker as a free gift. And you can do that either by going to that specific page that I shared, or you can get it on the main blog, which is cookwithashoe.com. And I'm sharing that now, and you can sign up and get your free budget tracker and hopefully spend a lot less this holiday season. Let me just double check. All my questions have been answered. So I want to thank you again for spending the afternoon with me and asking some very wonderful questions. Look forward, or keep an eye out for when I decide to do my next question and answer session in December. And we'll continue the fun then. Have a great day.